Welcome to the 2022 Winter Classic Student Cluster Competition Studio Update Show. Now, here are your hosts, Dan Olds and Addison Snell.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to our studio update show for the Intersect 360 Research 2022 Winter Classic Invitational Student Cluster Competition. I'm Addison Snell, joined by Dan Olds. And Dan, you've had a very busy week getting started with the Winter Classic Invitational. We're ready for our first set of results.
Yes, we are. It has been a busy week for these 12 teams and for me. First of all, what did we do?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
This was week number 1 of the student cluster competition, and they were taking on the big ones for HPC, which are high performance LINPACK, HPL, and the high performance conjugate gradient benchmark, HPCG, as mentored by Hewlett Packard Enterprise.
Exactly. And Monday, Hewlett Packard put on a tour de force of training, almost 6 hours of content that they presented live and that we recorded and made available to the rest of the teams. But they talked about pretty much everything it takes to run those two benchmarks, plus went over a lot of HPC concepts like MPI, things like that. The students were well trained, and with having it recorded, you can go back and get at it. They also discussed the cluster, and they provided 40 nodes in a couple of different test beds for the students to use. And it just went smoothly. Plus, they monitored a Slack channel and answered questions as they went.
I love this. I mean, let's just jump right into the fire and get the kids going on HPL and HPCG. These are the benchmarks we tend to look at the most universally across industry wide as an opening statement about what kind of performance, what kind of efficiency you're getting. This is a great introduction to parallelism and efficiency for high performance computing, and really very grateful to HPE and all the mentors who spend the time with the students to get them going on this. We're going to have a whole separate episode where you talk to HPE on the mentorship, so we don't have to go too deep on that here.
But we're going to
really
give them credit.
We're saying that, this is how everyone gets out of the blocks in the race. And we had 12 teams really ready to go take things on. So where do you want to go from here?
Let me just give you a little bit of an overview on the scores real quick. Yeah. We had 10 and a half teams submit results for the benchmarks. Not all 12, but that's okay. That happens. But this is a high watermark. We didn't have this many teams successfully complete the benchmarks last year. The other thing that's interesting, and there's a story that hangs on this, and we'll talk about it when we get there, but 2 teams really took advantage of the setup for HPCG. One took it all the way to the house.
A little sneak attack.
Little bit. I'm not going to say it's a loophole because they didn't do anything that wasn't allowed by the rules.
It was legal.
It was totally legal, totally legit, but they took it to the house. And we'll see as we get into this. Are we ready to dive into the actual scores?
Yeah, I just want to comment. You said we got mostly the teams submitting, and this is kind of the life of student cluster competitions. Just like if you're watching a slalom race in the Olympics, sometimes you're going all out and you miss a gate and you don't get there. And this happens normally in student cluster competitions. And not all the teams get a score, and you've only got 1 week, and these are full-time students besides. So to actually get this out there, optimized, and post a score is already an achievement. And then we've had a pretty good competition start regardless. So Dan, you started putting together a leaderboard here. Let's start getting to some of these results.
Let us present the the 2022 Winter Classic official leaderboard. Let's see who did what.
And you see, we've got multiple component scores coming up. We're going to be looking at HPL and HPCG. Let's start at the back of the pack right now. By no means out of it, but finding out what it takes to get LINPACK and HPCG scores up. Morehouse College and Spelman Morehouse, the combined team. What's going on here, Dan?
I think they just didn't leave themselves enough time to do anything. That, the demands of school and whatever else you have going on, they figured they could just kind of do this over, Saturday and Sunday, and it'd be all good. Valuable lesson.
Get there. Still in it.
Plenty of time.
Got more runs.
We got more runs. We've got 7 different things are going to be scored on. So there you go.
So we see a DNS, that's a did not submit. Now we got some actual scores coming in for the other teams. These are all normalized 100%, right?
Yes.
So whoever had the top score gets 100. So when I see a 53 or a 14, that's what percent of the top score they got.
Exactly.
Now let's get to the next teams here.
Well, Cal State Fullerton and Fayetteville, they're out there, they're trying. I don't think that they spent a lot of time on optimizing, that they got it running and called it good. So we're going to get them some help from that, from our pals at BioTeam.
BioTeam, your SEAL Team 6,
SEAL
HPC
Team 6.
experts who are coming in to help out anyone who needs more help. Here's a couple of teams now that are doing it, but they could use a little more optimization. Not a terrible LINPACK score out of Cal State Fullerton in particular. They're on the board there. HPCG takes a little more to get going. Yeah,
and I wonder if Fayetteville maybe had a problem scaling. On the LINPACK, you're going 2 nodes, and HPCG is 4 nodes. To me, I wonder if there's a scalability problem, but we're going to let the folks at BioTeam sort that out. Now let's talk about
that's the bottom third. Let's get into the next group here. And now we're starting to fill in some teams that we're starting to see some good scores, particularly on the LINPACK side.
Yes. And I call this sort of the middle of the Packers, right? And going from top to bottom, Channel Islands, Don't Panic team, 80 points on LINPACK, not bad at all. But look at their schoolmates underneath them, the Ecos Engineers, 88% or 88 points, which is essentially 88% of the high score, and Prairie View, 90%.
90% of the high score and 50% of the HPCG score, which is saying something because, as you pointed out, we got a school that kind of broke the curve on an HPCG. So that made it a little tougher for everyone else to get a high percentage there. We can also talk about Utep, who's in that middle tier, and they were one of the top scores.
Yeah, 98.
On LINPACK, 98%
of
the top, 98% of the top LINPACK score, 30%, close to 30% of the top HPCG score. These are schools that have it going on, that are in the middle of the pack and definitely in pouncing range of the top of the leaderboard.
And if UTEP had, pulled a 50th percentile HPCG, we'd be talking about them in a different category.
Yep.
So good
50% job. Efficiency, not 50th percentile. I think they're well above 50th percentile at this point.
Yeah. But I mean, if they had scored the average, pulled in a 50 on HPCG, we'd be talking about them entirely differently. So a lot of progress here. The other thing I want to point out is that all of these teams in the middle of the pack were above 70% efficiency on LINPACK.
That's impressive. I mean, we look at systems on the top 500 list that don't always hit 70% on LINPACK. So, they're learning how to do it here on these clusters from HPE.
And El Paso hit 78% efficiency. So that is
very
impressive.
Good. Very good.
So now let's talk about the leaders.
Not the absolute top.
Not the absolute top, but the close to the top. And take a look at who comes in. Texas Tech comes in a big way with 2 teams. The Matadors that pulled a 95 in LINPACK and a 51 in HPCG, and the Red Raiders who topped out LINPACK.
They were the top LINPACK score. The Red Raiders team from Texas Tech University. Matadors also very strong. And then the other one you filled in here is Florida A&M.
Yes.
Which had a very good HPCG score.
Very good HPCG and a good LINPACK. And that's enough for second place. So
second place overall goes to Florida and A&M. Texas Tech, the Red Raiders team, is third place overall, despite being number one on LINPACK. The number one overall is the team that really broke the model on HPCG.
Yes. Who is it? It's coming. It's the Tennessee State University team.
Way to go, Tennessee State. Not only 100% on the HPCG, which was well above what everyone else did. And we'll talk about that in a second, but that's no fluke. I mean, they're at 98.5% of Texas Tech Red Raiders LINPACK score. So this team with the number one HPCG score and the number two HPL score is number one overall currently with a total score of 198.5.
That is a nice lead. Not even close to insurmountable. We're way too early. But here's what they did. And this was the topic of discussion with me and the mentors over the weekend, including during the Super Bowl first quarter. What they did is they sized the HPCG problem size small enough so it all fit into cache.
Aha. So you don't have to go out to memory. It's just running out of cache. That's a nifty trick. And HPE ought to appreciate that with some of the large memory systems that they have coming out of the SGI heritage. That's the whole trick with applications like HANA, where you want to fit it all into memory, fit things into cache. If you can fit your database into cache or into memory, things run a lot faster. And HPE knows that.
What's interesting about this is the teams have to do something that we call an application brief. So on each application they complete, they do a little short slide set that tells us where they started, what they did to optimize, and what they got to. And what's funny is that in the Tennessee State application brief, they said almost apologetically, we didn't have a lot of time to do HPCG because we were spending so much time on LINPACK, and here's what we got. And so I don't know if that problem set is because that they ran through some permutations and found out that they could get this thing into cache, or if they just tried a few in the dark, hit on one that was great, and went with it.
Well, you can be lucky and you can be good, and maybe sometimes you can be both. I think they're at least good when I look at not only that, but also the LINPACK score. They could also be lucky, but lucky and good is not a bad combination.
Not bad at all. I would take that. That's a definite win.
Now, furthermore, let's go back to, we're having a lot of fun looking at a leaderboard and who's doing the best right now, but all of these students are learning how to parallelize LINPACK and HPCG on an HPC cluster, and they've got more challenges ahead with real-world applications with other mentors on other clusters.
Now, should we tell them what's coming up next or let it be a surprise?
Oh, let's let it be a surprise. We're good about that, Dan.
Okay. We have a surprise activity. This week is off. Surprise activity for next week, then a week off. Then we have NASA running a subset of the NASPAR benchmarks. And that'll be interesting. That's NASA Ames Research Center.
Terrific. I love working with NASA Ames over there. They're often partners in crime with Rupak Biswas. Our ISC vendor hot seat sessions. I love doing that together with NASA Ames, and great to see them stepping up as mentors.
That is plenty of fun. I do the other sessions and can't enjoy myself more at ISC than doing those sessions. So this is where they lay right now. We've got Tennessee State with a significant lead over Florida A&M. Not that it's significant, but it's not huge. And we got the Red Raiders coming up in third, and then their partners in crime, the Matadors, coming up in fourth, and then Utep fifth. It's a competition.
Fantastic.
It's a horse race.
It's a competition, and I'm looking forward to seeing more. So stay tuned to these studio update shows. You'll learn more about the teams, more about the mentors, more about the sponsors, and more about the leaders as we go on. This is going to be a fun season for student cluster competing, Dan.
Absolutely. I can't get enough of this stuff.
All right, Dan, thanks for all your work on this, and keep going, teams. We're cheering for you. Thanks for tuning in.
Stay tuned.